Good evening, everyone. So excited to see you. Thank you for joining us. My understanding is football playoffs are on, so this is a big sacrifice that I am well aware of. With that, we're going to get going right away. And so we're so excited to have Dr. Ellen Reed with us. McKenzie is related. Is that correct? Yeah, McKenzie's related. And so I thought it'd be best if we had Coach McKenzie introduce Ellen, and then we're just going to get right started with Ellen's presentation. So we really appreciate you being on, Ellen, and let's go. McKenzie,
Awesome.
on to you.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Thank you all. And super excited to introduce Dr. Ellen Reed with us. I've known her for 34 years because she is my cousin. So it's been awesome just to kind of see her and her career path. So she's a PhD in psychology, and she is a co-author of a book called Relentless Solution Focus. And she works with elite level athletes. She works with executives. She works with kind of all different types of people to really focus on mental toughness and mental strength. And so she reached out. She's obviously very aware of my training schedules and triathlon Ironman training, and reached out a couple of months ago and asked if I wanted to do a beta test on an app called Level Up, which is her and her co-founder of the app. They have this app that is, I would kind of relate it to like a Headspace app, but it's for mental toughness. And so it's 2 to 3 minutes every single day. You get on, you have a little a thought kind of provoking question. And what I was really shocked by is how simple and easy it was, and how easy it was to just kind of get mentally focused for the day, for whatever task you're doing. And it's really focused on you and what your specific goals are. And so after going through that, obviously knowing Ellen, I really wanted to bring her on, because I think that is another factor that we're talking a lot about in terms of training. I think that really takes us to the next level, is getting that kind of that mental sharpness and mental toughness. And so I'm going to leave it to Ellen. I want to introduce her. She's got a lot of really good ideas and just things for us to think about. So really excited to have her on. And Ellen, Dr. Ellen Reed, take it away.
Well, thanks, Kenzie. Well, it's such a pleasure to be speaking to you. And I know the impact that this group has had on McKenzie. So as she said, I'm her cousin. And so I'm so happy to be here to give what I can give to a group that's had such an impact on her, and that I know has such an impact on so many lives. So I know, again, it's late on a Sunday. There's probably a lot of other things you could be doing. And the fact that you're here already puts you all ahead of your competition. And I know what you do is intense. And I also know that you have other lives outside of this. So McKenzie and I were talking about, what would be the best thing to cover? And I knew it had to be self-confidence. I have 25 minutes with you, and I take that 25 minutes very seriously to make the biggest impact possible. And there's nothing that is going to make a greater impact than me teaching you specifically how to work on self-confidence. So let me ask you this. Just think about it to yourself. How much time do you spend each day working on your self-confidence? And you're probably a little confused on how to even answer that question, because most people just simply don't know how to work on self-confidence. We know we should. Most of us have heard that self-confidence is a good thing, right? But we haven't been taught an effective way to do this. So my day job is a performance coach, as McKenzie said, for elite athletes, business professionals. I teach my athletes effective tools for developing the mental toughness necessary to perform at their potential. And the most important component of mental toughness, believe it or not, is self-confidence. Most people think of it as sort of a soft quality. Beating yourself up, that's tough, right? Not spending the time to recognize your successes because you've got to get on to the next. And let me tell you, that's normal. Beating yourself up, being quick to brush off your successes is totally normal. And it's a pure sign of mental weakness. Now, maintaining self-confidence requires mental toughness. Your brain isn't designed for this. So essentially what I work with my athletes on is learning and training to become abnormal. So let me be clear that prioritizing self-confidence, it's not a matter of just motivation to do it or putting in additional effort or even just learning to let things go better. It's really a matter of understanding how your brain works and understanding the science, and then doing the consistent mental training to be able to perform at your best. Now, you all have the consistent physical training part of this nailed, but what I'm going to teach you a piece of, and what I work with my athletes on, is knowing what that consistent training looks like for the mental side of the game. The good news is that it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take nearly as much time as you have to spend on the physical stuff. The tools that my athletes use take no more than 4 or 5 minutes a day total. And what I'm going to teach you today is the first 1 minute of that. So training mental toughness doesn't take a lot of time, but it does take consistency. So if you leave this presentation with a stack of notes and tips that seem helpful, but then end up in a drawer, never to be seen or implemented again, then I've totally failed you. I won't overwhelm you with more to implement than what can be done with consistency. And you'll leave with a very clear and concrete training tool that will significantly drive results. Now, probably like a lot of you, I was always an A+ student. I did all the extra credit, even though I never really needed it. I joined every club. I packed my after-school hours with dance classes and other things. I was successful at most anything I'd put my mind to. And every morning, before my eyes would even open, my heart would be pounding out of my chest. And my mind would be swirling with all the things that could potentially go wrong. And I lived every day in such a constant state of subtle stress and anxiety that I didn't even really realize it was a problem. My life was focused on avoiding what could potentially go wrong. And when things went right, I would just hold my breath and wait for the next bad thing to happen. See, it's normal to go through life in a somewhat constant state of anxiety and negative self-talk and self-doubt. The way I woke up every morning is probably not much different than the way a lot of us wake up every morning. In fact, when I've asked some of the highly successful people that I've worked with what the biggest obstacle to their success has been, the number one answer I get is self-doubt. Now, I'm a researcher by training. I've got a doctorate in psychology. Let me assure you that everything I'm going to teach you tonight is backed by the research. We're not guessing on this stuff. And frankly, there's so much being taught out there that has no basis in the science of how the brain works. And it's actually counterproductive to performance. So here's some of the science. Here's what's critical for you to understand. Self-confidence is the number one variable for performance, period. It's empirically studied. There's nothing more important for performance than self-confidence. Remember, people haven't been taught how to foster their self-confidence. And what's normal is for people to evaluate themselves with a very perfectionist mindset, where we beat ourselves up when we fall short, and we're really quick to shrug off what we do well. Now think about this. Are you the kind of person who does 99 things right in a day, and then one thing less than perfect? And on that drive home from a workout or work or training, or when you're reflecting on your day, you're focused on that one thing that went less than perfectly. Now, if that sounds like you, you're totally normal. Humans have something called problem-centric thought as our normal course of thought, which means that we tend to focus in on problems and our mistakes or our shortcomings first. Now, if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, it was important. It was important to our survival as a species that we could quickly recognize, the bear running at us through the woods or the poisonous berries on the bush. But now our resources are much more plentiful. Our environments are much more stable. And this problem-centric thought totally erodes self-confidence and performance. And it's terrible for emotional states. Now, let me tell you a story about a time when I realized just how reinforced this self-doubting perfectionist mindset is. So I've got 2 little boys. This past summer, my husband and I would try to take the kids out on a walk around the neighborhood, just get out of the house. My littlest one, Thomas, would be in the stroller so we could keep him strapped down. And then my 5-year-old William would usually walk with us. Now, William got a bike the year before. He did okay with it when he first started. He didn't have a lot of fear, but then he had one bad fall and he didn't want to get back on it. So we didn't push it. And then the rest of the summer goes by and he doesn't get back on it. So now fast forward to this past summer. We're getting ready to go for our walk and William says, hey guys, can I ride my bike? And so we were very pleasantly surprised and we're like, yeah, of course. And so my husband started with him, pushing him up the hills, making sure he didn't tip over. Pretty quickly, William started to get a little more confident. He would ride ahead of us and we could tell he was actually kind of liking it. So I was excited that he wasn't terrified of his bike anymore. And I yelled to him, I was like, William, you're such a great bike rider. You're getting so fast. And then William pretty matter-of-factly just said, yeah, I know. Just like that. Yeah, I know. Now, my first instinct was to laugh because it's just so rare to hear someone respond like that. You're not supposed to show that you agree when someone gives you a compliment. You're supposed to act surprised. Like me, right? I'm doing a good job. So his confident response of just, yeah, I know, it was kind of jarring to me. And a little part of me almost even corrected him. A tiny instinct in me was to quickly teach him not to react like that, to teach him to pretend that he was less confident than he was. And I know how hard self-confidence is to develop. And at that moment, I had a great example at my fingertips of just how young that's instilled in us. I almost instilled it in my own kid, and I should know better. Why? Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we do that to our kids? Or I guess I should say, why did I almost do that to my kid? Is that going to make him better? Telling him that he wasn't that good at riding his bike? And the truth is, he was doing a great job. It was his first bike ride in a year, and that in and of itself was something for him to feel good about. But the research would confirm that him truly believing that he was doing great was the most effective way for him to keep getting better. There's nothing else my husband and I could do that could speed up his progress more than his mentality would in that moment. We could hire Lance Armstrong to come work with him, and my money and the research would still be on self-confidence. Remember, self-confidence is the #1 variable for all human performance. We're taught to be humble. And after that moment, I did make sure to teach him to say thank you when someone gives him a compliment. But that moment really made me take a look at how I respond when someone gives me a compliment. And think about the last time someone gave you a compliment. And how did you respond? Did you respond with a self-assured thank you? Or did you respond with a doubtful, thank you, but and then go on to list all the things that were wrong with what you did? You got to cut that out. It's just like riding a bike. When you learn it, it sticks. And when you reinforce it, it sticks. That stuff gets into our procedural memory, which gets into our self-image, which dictates how we're going to perform, how we're going to feel, and how we're going to live. So before we get into specifically how you're going to combat this, let me just teach you a little bit more about the science of why this normal course of thought is so bad. So expectancy theory is a theory in psychology that's the basis for most of the work that I do, expectancy theory. And it states that which you focus on expands. That which you focus on expands. Now, again, what's normal, the way our brains are designed, and what's reinforced is that you'll do 99 things right in a day, one thing less than perfect. And then what sticks out at you at the end of the day is that one imperfection. So when you're evaluating your performance by focusing on what you feel like you screwed up, or what you aren't doing well or perfectly, or what you still feel like you're lacking in life, you're making those things more likely because of the way that erodes self-confidence. That which you focus on expands. Now think of it like this. Think of it like those algorithms on social media that dictate what we're going to see. So for example, I love interior design. In my free time, I love searching through books and accounts and images on design for inspiration. So the more I search and the more I see traditional design, for example, the more I'm going to be shown traditional design spaces. Then the more I start to think, wow, I really love traditional design. Then the more I seek out designers who have that traditional aesthetic, and the cycle continues. When you watch certain shows on Netflix starts to recommend other similar content. It even moves it to places where you're more likely to select it. Now compare this to the algorithm in our brain that's reinforcing and expanding our negative self-image. I want you to just take a moment and think about how much focus you place on what you're lacking, or where you feel like you're falling short, or where you feel like life is running too fast, or where you're overwhelmed. There's just too much work to get done. I'm just pulled in too many directions. Most of us have a pretty thick Rolodex of all the ways we feel like we're falling short, or all the things that we feel like are out of our control. Remember, that which you focus on expands. It's totally normal. It's the way I used to live my life and why I would wake up every morning with my heart beating out of my chest. Now think about it like this. Let's say you had a boss or a coach that every time you did something well, she was looking the other direction. And every time you made a mistake, she was right there standing over your shoulder. How would that affect your self-confidence? How would that affect your performance and your enjoyment of your training or your job? This is what the perfectionist mindset does. It erodes self-confidence. And you know what I'm going to say about self-confidence? It's number one. And that perfectionist mindset, again, is totally normal. Now, this doesn't mean that I want you all to put on rose-colored glasses and not push yourselves to improve, or not take accountability for your mistakes. That's not what this is. But the normal perfectionist way of evaluating ourselves does not lead to an increase in performance. And that's what we're all here for, to get better. All right, so let's talk about how we get better at this. Now, the really good news is that we can rewire our brains through consistent training. We can take advantage of something called neuroplasticity, where we can mold our brain's connections through training. We can change what our normal is. And this consistent training is going to come in the form of something developed by my colleague, Dr. Jason Selk. He was a co-author of Relentless Solution Focus. It's called the Success Log. The Success Log is how. Now, this tool takes 1 minute, and it trains your brain to shift from this perfectionist mindset to the solution-focused mentality. Now, individuals with a solution-focused mentality give themselves credit where credit is due, and they relentlessly pursue improvement, not perfection. That which you focus on expands. When you're focused on what you're doing well, you're going to do more things well. When you're focused on what you want to improve, you're going to make improvements much more quickly, much more effectively. The difference between beating yourself up for your mistakes or your losses versus quickly turning your focus onto what you can do to improve next time is such a subtle, but it's such a massive difference. This is the difference between those who are successful and those who are highly successful and the happiest. See, I could have gone my whole life being fairly successful on paper. But would I have truly felt like I was fulfilling my potential? And would I have truly felt happy? And let me tell you, waking up every morning feeling calm and confident and happy is a much better way to go through life than waking up every morning with my heart beating out of my chest, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. When I think of success, I really think of happiness. I don't think there really is a better way to gauge success than happiness. This is why we all do what we do. We seek goals because it gives us a sense of accomplishment and happiness. In fact, the research shows that happy people are more successful. And who doesn't want to be happier in life? So this success log is one of the most important tools that every single one of my clients does on a consistent basis. So let's get into it now. There's 3 questions on the success log that, again, should take you no more than 1 minute to complete. And the first questions, now write this down if you've got something to write with there. If not, I'll send it out. But question number 1, what 3 things did I do well in the last 24 hours? What 3 things did I do well in the last 24 hours? Now, one of my favorite quotes is by the legendary coach John Wooden. If you haven't heard of Coach Wooden, he was arguably the winningest coach of all time of any sport. This guy knew more about winning than probably anyone on the planet. And Coach Wooden said that it's the little things done well on a consistent basis that cause greatness. It's the little things done well on a consistent basis that cause greatness. So don't think you need to cure cancer or set a PR for something to count as a done well. That's your perfectionism talking. Anything that promotes your personal or professional well-being counts. So I showed up to training this morning after a late night last night. I shaved a second off my time. I put in 100% effort in the pool today. I spent 10 minutes reading to my son before bed. I pointed out a job well done in a teammate. I apologized without giving an excuse when I was late to a Zoom meeting. Remember, that which you focus on expands. It's the little things. Each time you fill out your success log, it's like putting little pennies into your piggy bank of self-confidence. Remember, this is about retraining your brain to be able to better recognize what you're doing well. You're changing your normal course of thought. You're quite literally redirecting your brain activity. You're redirecting your algorithm. Second question on the success log is, what's one thing I want to improve in the next 24 hours? Instead of focusing on what you feel like you screwed up that day, you're forcing your brain to identify one thing you want to improve. So add more protein to my diet, get more sleep tomorrow, shave time off my swim, finish the paperwork I've been putting off. Anything more than focusing on one thing to improve at a time is a recipe for inconsistency. One thing I want to improve in the next 24 hours. This is why most people aren't sticking to their New Year's resolutions a few weeks into the year if they even make it that long. This is why most people are so ineffective at setting goals, because they're trying to set way too many. Stick to no more than one. And then question number 3, the last question on the success log. What is one action step I can take that could help make that improvement? What's one action step I can take that could help make that improvement? We're not looking for complete resolution or perfection here. We're looking for improvement. So for example, if you want to add more protein to your diet, say spend 10 minutes tonight meal planning for the week. Or maybe pack my lunch for tomorrow. Remember, just improvement, not complete resolution. And that's it. Those 3 simple questions. And I don't want you to spend more than 1 minute on it. Now, this can't just be a pep talk. I hope I've convinced you how important this is, but keep in mind that knowing something does nothing. Knowing that you want to go to the gym doesn't make you stronger. You've got to actually go and pick up the weights. And remember, because this perfectionist mindset is so normal, it will take consistent training to combat it. And this training takes only a minute a day by completing your success log. And I know that seems simple, but again, I see the effects of people committing to that 1 minute per day in my clients and in myself. And let me assure you that 1 minute is worth your time. So again, I've got 2 little kids at home, and I love Mr. Rogers. Maybe you grew up with Mr. Rogers, or your kids might have watched Daniel Tiger, which is sort of a modern day Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, if you're not familiar with it. But I watched this documentary about Fred Rogers and his passion and commitment to helping kids navigate growing up. Now, Fred Rogers has passed away, but someone close to him was describing in this documentary how in one episode, Mr. Rogers wanted the kids to understand what a minute was. He wanted them to be able to feel what a minute of time felt like. So one episode of the show, he took an egg timer and he set it for 60 seconds and he sat in silence with that egg timer for 1 minute. Now, can you imagine that today? A kids show that included a minute of silence. Now, what this person who was involved in the show said about that example and what it represented was that in this show, which ran for over 30 years, was that there was a lot of slow space, but no wasted space. Slow space, but no wasted space. We are all so busy, and life doesn't seem to slow down. And it may not seem like it now, but it will be hard to devote 60 seconds of slow space to completing your success logs. It'll be tempting to brush it off because you're busy or you have too many urgent things to get done. Just remember that Fred Rogers moment when you're tempted to say, I don't have time to get my success log done today, or I'll do it later. I'll do it later is code for it's not that important. It may be slow space, but it's one of the most important and impactful ways you can spend that 1 minute. And use resources to help you do this. McKenzie told you a little bit about it. We have this awesome app that teaches and trains what we did today, plus the rest of our program. And it really helps people stay consistent with it. Now, this is something that people have been asking us to create for years. And it's been out for 6 months or so, and the feedback on it has been that it's a total game changer for people. Now, I'm biased, but I just don't think there's anything better or more effective out there. It's called Level Up. I've got a discount link for your group that I'll send to Natasha to send out if you want to get that. And I will also include with that a PDF of the success log that you can use as your template. At the very least, print out a bunch of copies of that. Leave them out on your desk or in your gym bag. If you do get the app, which I would strongly recommend, you just fill out your success log right in the app. So it makes it super easy. But if you have questions, we'll have a little bit of time to do some questions now, but you get in there and start executing this stuff. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear about how this is working for you. If you need help with anything or want to go beyond the success log, just remember, there's a lot of stuff being taught out there that's not backed in the research. And it can feel overwhelming with even what to do or what to start with. Start by spending that 1 minute of slow space on your success log. Again, be proud of yourselves for spending your Sunday night doing this. You're prioritizing your improvement. So if we're okay with it, Natasha, we've got time for a couple questions. Should I just...
The way we do questions, if anyone has anything, they just type it in the chat. And so
oh, great. Okay.
An easy way to control the number. So we do have a first question.
Okay, good. Tim,
and I'll read it out. Yeah.
Okay.
How or when do you review your success log over time? Does reviewing it after the fact matter, or is it just doing it that matters? And then also, do you measure or track success at completing your one action?
Okay, so that's a really good question, Tim. And you can throw them away right after you do them. Your question's really smart. It's the doing that's important. And you'll know that the success log is starting to have an impact when you start recognizing your done wells throughout the day. You'll start catching yourself saying, ooh, I'll add that to my success log later. Ooh, that was a good thing. I'll add that to my success log. Every once in a while, my clients like to go back and review them, but really you can throw them away. It's the doing. Remember, the act of writing things in your success log is rewiring your brain toward being better at recognizing our done wells. Now, your question about how do you measure or track success? So you're getting into the goal setting, right? And so goal setting is a piece of this that I do with all of my clients, but it also covers it in the app where we do track whether you are on track for your goals. And that's one of the things that's really cool about the app, where it's actually, I don't tell anybody this, but it's a little bit better than working one-on-one with me or Jason, my coworker, because it tracks it for you literally every single day. But to your point, to your question, the important part is just the act of writing them down.
Awesome. Anyone else have a question? No, we're right at 6:30. That was a perfect question. I think many of us
Yeah.
had that exact question, so that was great.
You know what? I think let me answer one more question that nobody asked because I just thought of, because I know that you guys have other lives outside of training, right? And you may be thinking, well, do I only write things down regarding my training or only write things down regarding work? It doesn't matter. 3 things you did well in the last 24 hours. Some days it might be all athletic, some days it might be all work, some days it might be a mix. But just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Done is better than perfect here.
So I have a question. Is it you're doing the 3 things, but it's like 2 of them should be done first thing in the morning, and then the third thing would be written down in the afternoon versus taking it all in 1 minute, or what's the cadence?
So that's a good question. That's a really good question too, because people a lot of times will ask, when's the perfect time to do the success log? So whenever works for you is the perfect time. So the first question is, what's 3 things you did well in the last 24 hours? So if you're doing your success log in the morning, you just think about the previous day. If you do your success log in the evening, you just think about the previous 24 hours. And so really that in the past 24 hours or in the next 24 hours kind of covers you from whenever you want to do your success log. But decide when you want to do it, right? Work it into your routine. Don't just think that you'll do it when you remember it, right? Set it up into your routine. Set a reminder, put it in your calendar.
Awesome. And then we have one more question we'll get to. So from Mike, it says, I've only just started meditating. Seems obvious, but would practice some reinforcing. I'm not reading this correctly. Seems obvious, but would put in practice some reinforcement during this to align with confidence building. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm a fan of anything that's going to help you improve. So if you're meditating and you find that it seems to be having a positive effect, write that down in your success log. What's one thing I did well in the last 24 hours? I meditated, right? Or you want to keep reinforcing that. That might be your one thing you want to work on improving the next 24 hours. Make sure I get my meditation in. So absolutely. I think that anything that you're doing that you think helps, keep doing it. But one of the biggest kind of things that takes away from people's goal setting is they forget, right? That's one of the biggest reasons people don't stick to their goals is because they forget about them. And so that's what this success log can help you do. And actually, like when you get into the goal setting part of the app or with my athletes and we do the goal setting, people forget. And so it's really important that you have these things in place that help remind you of what you're working for every day to make sure that you're doing the things on a daily basis that are going to get you what you want.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. We're just over 30 minutes. So honestly, that was awesome. I know I'm going to start doing this. I think it will be a very helpful practice. So I definitely encourage everyone else. I'm definitely going to check out the app as well, honestly, just for something to keep me accountable, because I can absolutely see the value in this. And you're right. Confidence and something I need to work on as well. I think you asked, you complimented me when we got on the call and I brushed it off. And so
we
took that immediately to heart, as you said that. But no, this was so helpful. I really appreciate it, guys. If anyone has any further questions for Dr. Ellen, we'll have her contact information, and then we'll definitely get those PDFs for your 3 things. And then, and we'll send out this recording if anyone will hear it all. So thank you so much, you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. You guys are awesome. Such an inspiring group.
Thanks, Ellen.